What do you think America should do?
In the Middle East?
Yes.
I think they should allow Israel to win and not to be stuck in the cycle of endless wars. And the cycle of endless wars, in my view, comes about because of Israel being made to fight to a draw every time. There was an opportunity, I've spoken to one of the commanders who was in charge of it, there was an opportunity in 2010 to destroy Hamas back then. Israel was pulled back from doing so by the international community, international pressure. Well, lots of reasons. I think if there were two main ones I could put my finger on, it's one, the two-state delusion, which is the idea that it's in Israel's gift to create a Palestinian state, and that everything about the facts on the ground must be pushed towards a two-state solution. And that if, and again, there have been Democrats and Republicans, conservative and Labour, people from right and left for decades now have had this delusion that they should focus their foreign policy on the two-state solution, because the two-state solution will solve all of the other problems in the Middle East. And that's flat out wrong. There is no reason to suspect that the economy of the Yemen would boom if Mahmoud Abbas ran a deeply corrupt another Palestinian state. There is no reason to think that the Ayatollahs in Iran would suddenly grant Iranian women equal rights and not imprison them if they don't cover their hair, simply because Hamas was running another state in the Middle East. It's a total delusion. Now, there's a case for saying that the Palestinians should have autonomy in certain areas, and if they can have a peaceable state, which they don't bring up their children to try to annihilate the Jewish state, there's an argument for that. But it is a delusion to think that that should be the principal priority of Western policy in the region, and that if it happened, everything would bloom. But the second reason is because there has been a delusion for certainly since the Obama years, and in Britain since the Blair years, that the principal other thing in the region that is to be a priority is the bringing the Iranian Revolutionary Islamic government in Tehran in from the cold. In other words, that the country that since 1979 has been benighted by this appalling brutal Islamist regime, will one day have a moderate. And we can encourage that and deal with that. And that's why whenever a new leader is elected
in Iran,
they're always called the reforming moderate,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
And of course, you scratch even slightly beneath the surface, and people describe them as a moderate because they only want to kill most of the Jews, that sort of thing. Not all of them. They don't want to annihilate America now. I mean, it's our definition of moderate shifts a lot when it comes to Iran.
The People's Republic.
The People's Republic, which is again one of the reliable ones, like with the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. None of those things apart from North Korea. I think this delusion that has taken hold of the Democrats in America and the Conservatives and Labour Party in Britain, among others, and Macron in France, most French foreign policy thinking, and European policy thinking, in fact, in recent decades, has been focused on this question. I think it's the wrong thing. I think that the regime in Tehran, as long as it's there, will continue with its stated objectives. It will continue to be deeply anti-Western, will continue to try to destabilize the West and our allies, particularly Israel, in the region. As long as they're there, that's their belief. That's what they want. And so the idea of bringing them in from the cold is just a delusion. Instead, we should contain them, definitely try to bankrupt them.
So much of the criticism against Bibi Netanyahu's speech, Prime Minister of Israel's speech in the United States, was that he had come to the U.S. to push us into World War III, to push us into a war that we should not be in, because this is what Israel would want. So you went to the speech, and I know you've been studying this issue for a while. What is your response to that?
I mean, I suppose some people think that. I've seen some commenters say, I mean, it's nonsense. I mean, what he's trying to do is to rally an international coalition against the country that is destabilizing the Middle East, which is Iran, or the regime in Iran. You know, it is Iran that has been funding and arming Hamas. It is Iran that has been funding, arming, and training Hezbollah that has destabilized Lebanon. It is Iran that has been funding, arming, and training the Houthi in Yemen, which, you know, is attacking international shipping lanes, has shot at and hit British naval vessels, among others. Wherever you look in the Middle East, it's Iran that has been destabilizing everything. Now, it doesn't seem to me that Israel should have to keep open all the world's water lanes, among other tasks. But Israel is fighting a war very hot in some places, slightly cooler in others, on 7 fronts at the moment. And I don't think that that is fair. I don't think that Israel should have to do that or do it alone. Of course, the Biden administration has been on and off pretty good with helping to rearm Israel in this conflict. But it seems to me that America should be encouraged, along with other Western powers, to make it very clear to Iran that its regional destabilization should not be allowed to continue. Will America do that? We'll see. But that was what Netanyahu was calling for. And there was plenty of criticism of him within Israel for doing that as well. But that is what he has always seen as the principal issue in the region as well. And with one other thing, which is the principal concern he has always had, and which I've always had, long had, is to ensure that Iran, the Iranian Revolutionary Islamic government, never gets nuclear weapons.
Is it fair to expect the United States, which is on the other side of the world, to get involved in wars in the Middle East?
Well, that's a very good question. And I think a lot of people, particularly on the right, have been reevaluating that. A lot of people on the left have long thought that we shouldn't, or that we should come in on another side.
Right. I mean, it almost feels like things have, I don't know if they flip-flopped or I don't know what, but I agree with you. I'm hearing from many on the right, you know, they call it America first maybe, or an isolationist mentality.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely grown on the right. And to be fair to them, it has grown for some completely understandable reasons. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq in particular did not go well. And after 20 years in Afghanistan, America has very little to show for it. Not nothing, by the way, not nothing. The aim was to stop another 9/11 happening, and that worked. And that's a lot. That's a lot to be able to make sure that there were not Al-Qaeda camps in which people are planning to fly planes into major American cities. It's always hard to get any credit for the things that didn't happen. But America does, and brave men and women of the American Armed Forces do deserve an enormous amount of credit for that. But nevertheless, Afghanistan, as people will have noticed, is not a thriving democratic society, and is handed back into the hands of the Taliban.
Yeah, which certainly left in a bad way.
Left in a terrible way. And so when people see that, I understand why a lot of people on the right and the left say, we just don't seem to be very good at this, so let's not do more of it. But I would say that those people who do take the view that therefore America should step back from the world should consider 2 things. Firstly, that, for instance, in the case of Israel, and also, by the way, in the case of Ukraine, people are not asking for American boots on the ground. In both cases, they're asking for American support to allow them to fight the war that they're having to fight. In the case of Ukraine, against Vladimir Putin's aggression. In the case of Israel, against Iranian aggression. And that is a very different thing. Nobody, as far as I know, nobody high up or in a position of influence in Israel or in America is saying we should have GIs in the Middle East. Quite other than that. The Israelis are capable, have shown themselves very capable of fighting to defend their country and their families and their people. And they're asking for American support in the form of armaments, diplomatic support, deterrence effects like planes being sent to the region to patrol and just show as a sign of strength. A very good thing, I think, that early in the conflict, President Biden sent a aircraft carrier to the region. But they're asking for that. That's a very different thing. But the second thing I would say, and do say to the sort of America first, because of course, by the way, the America first thing is, of course, America should be first for Americans.
But is it also America only?
Right. Now, and the thing I say to those people is, there is a massive contradiction they have in their thinking, which they should at some point address. The America-only people that I have spoken to and know don't want America in the 21st century to be an obscure power. They don't want China, the Chinese Communist Party, to be the premier country in the world. In fact, if you say that to them, they're horrified by the idea. So I would say that the thing they have to address is, you do still want to be the premier power in the world, don't you? Yes. But you think you can do it by withdrawing from the world entirely? You think that's possible? You think that if America is not interested in the world, other countries are not? I mean, America isn't very interested in Africa, but the Chinese Communist Party is really interested in Africa and is doing very clever things, not just in Belt and Road, but buying up of mineral resources and much more. So again, with the Middle East, with the Near East, if America is not interested, at least, I'm afraid there are other countries that are. And I think that the America-only people should really make up their minds on this. America can either be a secondary or tertiary world power, or it can be the premier world power. And if it's a premier world power, it should keep an interest in the world. That is not to say it should intervene everywhere. Far from it. It does not mean that it should be the sole policeman in the world, because this is a horrible and onerous job, and it is preposterous that, for instance, America should be, holding too much, carrying too much of the water for global security. Of course, NATO allies need to step up, have to step up, and some have. But that needs American leadership in the world. It does not mean that America should be the fool in this. Of course not. But it cannot just step back. That's a delusion. It's a dream. It's one that throughout American history has tempted people.
Yeah.
But it's a temptation like a lot of temptations that should be resisted.